Sinclair was born into the prestigious bourgeois family, which was known as the wealthiest family in the entire world, and during her early years, her father deeply loved and treasured both his wife and daughter. However, this peaceful and happy life was completely shattered when her mother suddenly passed away, and following this terrible tragedy, her father changed into a completely different person. He chose to cast aside his own immediate family, and became deeply obsessed with accumulating endless wealth, which eventually pushed their family to become the absolute richest in the world. Looking at him, she slowly realized that this cold and distant figure was no longer her real father, but instead felt like a complete stranger who was just wearing his skin. Since she no longer had any place left by his side, she was brutally kicked out of the family, and her life instantly crashed down to rock bottom. Even after all of that, she refused to give up, struggling and working relentlessly day after day just to stand face to face with him once again. She truly wanted to confront him directly so she could demand to know why he had abandoned her and what she actually meant to him. But she unfortunately lost that chance forever when the capital's most dangerous criminal, the Night Hound, suddenly beheaded her father right before her eyes. Watching his severed head roll directly to her feet in that moment instantly shattered her entire reason for living. Because of this, her legendary intelligence and rational thinking became completely useless as her entire drive to keep living vanished into thin air. Overwhelmed with grief, she unleashed her powerful magic, harboring a deep and burning hatred for both the Night Hound and President Dolores for taking away her true purpose in life. Later on, Sinclair admits that her trauma left her deeply confused and led her to make reckless choices, causing her to push everyone else away except for Vikir, whom she became obsessively attached to as her only source of trust. She was never trying to look for pity or get attention from anyone, but she simply had no other outlet to cope with her shattered sanity. Then, as she thinks back to the brutal battles that Dolores and the Night Hound fought against the demons, and the horrific nightmare they all suffered together inside the Abyss Tree, she suddenly realizes a terrifying truth, which is that a demon must have possessed her father at the exact moment his personality first changed so drastically. If her exile was actually a trick to protect her, it means the Night Hound only killed her father to save the entire empire from a hidden demon. She now understands that the legendary vigilante has been fighting a brutal, solitary war in the dark this entire time, all while being falsely framed as a terrible criminal. Deciding to throw away her deep hatred, she strongly resolves to find the Night Hound and talk to him face to face so she can learn the truth. With the vigilante's name still fresh on her mind, Sinclair suddenly wakes up from her deep sleep. She immediately gasps in sheer shock and disbelief as she looks over to see who is sleeping right next to her. She finds herself completely naked under a warm blanket with Vikir, while their wet uniforms are laid out to dry by the nearby campfire. Looking closely at the peacefully sleeping Vikir, she desperately tries to understand how on earth they ended up in such an intensely compromising situation. Right then, Vikir finally opens his eyes and instantly notices that she is awake, and seeing him look right back at her, Sinclair's face turns bright red in sheer embarrassment. She frantically scrambles backward away from him, loudly demanding to know what on earth he did to her while she was asleep. Remaining completely calm, Vikir simply hands over her dry clothes and explains that he only shared his body heat to keep her from freezing to death while she was completely drenched, flatly reassuring her that absolutely nothing inappropriate happened between them. Although Sinclair quickly throws her dry uniform back on to cover herself up, she still cannot help but feel incredibly flustered and confused by his overly casual attitude about the whole situation. However, their awkward moment is instantly cut short when she suddenly notices a thick, mysterious pink gas starting to flood into the sealed chamber. Seeing this, Vikir realizes he accidentally let his guard down and fell asleep because Sinclair's cold body took much longer to warm up than he had originally calculated. Right at that moment, Decarabia suddenly panics, shouting a loud warning that something truly terrible is starting to happen inside the room. Vikir curses quietly under his breath as a red system notification pops up to warn them that the second round of mating has officially commenced, injecting a highly potent aphrodisiac mist all around the room. He realizes that he completely forgot about the system's environmental timer, so he frantically spins around to check on Sinclair before the aphrodisiac can take full hold of her. But before Vikir can even react to the danger, Sinclair suddenly lunges forward and throws her arms tightly around him. She then collapses down to the hard floor, desperately clinging to his legs as she loses her balance. Trembling all over and panting heavily, she softly mutters that her head is spinning and she cannot think straight. She complains to him that her body feels burning hot and that absolutely everything around her feels intensely strange. Vikir quickly realizes she has inhaled the dangerous aphrodisiac mist, especially as she whimpers that she simply cannot control herself anymore. Fully consumed by the powerful gas, she begs to get closer to him, while the system chillingly announces that the female subject is now fully prepared for mating. Driven by pure instinct, she casts a quick spell, summoning glowing magic chains that instantly bind Vikir's arms so he cannot move away. Clinging tightly to the bound boy, she tearfully confesses to him that she is completely alone in the world and has nobody else. She frantically declares that as long as he stays right there with her, she will never have to feel lonely ever again. Staring down at her pitiful state, Vikir quietly sighs, deeply regretting that he now has to resort to drastic measures to stop her. He immediately summons his crimson Beelzebub blade, using its sharp power to effortlessly shatter the magic chains holding him down. While a completely stunned Sinclair looks up at him, Vikir stares back down with cold, glowing red eyes and softly apologizes.